What's up, everybody? Welcome into this Super Bowl edition of Pushing the Pile. We are coming live to you from the Media Center down here in New Orleans. Obviously cannot wait for the game Sunday, but we'll be coming live to you today, tomorrow, and Friday, noon to 2 the next 2 days, noon to 1 on Friday. And we got a loaded guest lineup for you. We got a lot of games we're going to be doing on the desk, so we got a lot of fun going on the next couple days.
You said a loaded lineup here, and some of the lineup may be loaded because you go to New Orleans and this place just begs for you to just go eat everything, have a couple pops with your buddies, and I'll tell you what, the media center's buzzing. We've ran into so many of our friends in the media in the last few hours here this morning. It's been great, and I'm so happy that we get to cap off the season here in New Orleans together on Pushing the Pile.
I'm a big fan of a hurricane myself. Haven't had one yet, but we may before the week is done. We're going to have Braxton Berrios join the show here shortly. Warren Sapp's going to join the show with just a U fest. We're not in Miami anymore, but we got all the you guys coming here.
Yep.
But first off the top, we're going to play a little game for you guys. The storyline game, because there's a zillion storylines leading up to the Super Bowl, but we don't want to talk about all of them. Some are far more interesting than others. So we're going to let you, Kyle, decide which ones you want to talk about. You got a little buzzer here. I'm going to intro the storyline, and if you like it, you're going to run with it. If you don't like it, you're going to buzz it. So here's the first one. Who will be sitting with Taylor?
If I don't like it, I don't buzz it.
No,
if I buzz, I talk about it.
Oh, okay. All right. Sure, that works too.
That's my
We can play it
chime-in
either
button?
way. That's like the Jeopardy.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Who will be sitting in Taylor Swift's suite? Don't you dare buzz that. Perfect. Who is Jason Kelce rooting for? I like this one.
Jason Kelce has to be rooting maybe a little bit bipartisan. He's clearly going to go, blood is thicker than water.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Kelce's his brother. Jason Kelce already has a Super Bowl. He already wore the Mummers outfit for the Super Bowl
Travis
parade.
has two, though.
Travis has a couple.
Three.
Why not three? He wants his brother to be part of something that's never been done before, like maybe an offensive lineman having a late-night comedy show. They're just trying to do things that nobody's ever done before. I can totally see Jason wearing the Chiefs jersey, but his wife is going to be Eagles.
I think he goes Eagles because he can't go back to Philly if he goes Chiefs, right?
I think Jason Kelce's one of the few guys that could do no wrong in the eyes of Philadelphia.
I don't know if there's anyone who could do no wrong in the eyes of Philadelphia. I'll just say that. So I think he dons Eagles. Obviously, I think he'll be happy either way.
He'll get one of those half jerseys that my mom used to wear to the Rams-Bears game, where it's split down the middle.
Was it Brady?
My number on this side, Chris's number on this side.
That was Brady Quinn's sister was the OG. Remember that? The Ohio State?
Was that the one?
Because she married A.J. Hawk, was dating A.J. Hawk at the time. It was like the Cotton Bowl.
Trendsetter.
She started that trend. All right, next one here. The Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid GOATs conversation. Is that a storyline that you're interested in talking about? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many more does Patrick have to win? How long does Andy have to stay? Is he going to go for the all-time wins record? Is he looking for, a no-doubt Super Bowl statistic? And look, Pete Prisco and I talked about it. He said if Patrick Mahomes completes this three-peat, he then becomes the GOAT. And in my opinion, he's going to have to win this one and one more in order to be the GOAT. Whether it's the four-peat or whether it is getting another one down the line here, I think Patrick still has some distance to travel before he gets to Tom Brady. You and I can agree on that.
Yeah, to me, obviously a big stepping stone on their way towards being the GOATs, but no one is quite there yet. Tom Brady was doing it at 46. Give me 10 more years of this play for Patrick Mahomes, even like 5 more years.
Yeah.
We can have that conversation, but he is just not quite there yet. Andy Reid, obviously, got to get to 6 to match Belichick.
Just go look at my favorite thing is when they do the side-by-side statistics for, the first 8 years, first 7 years of a career. Every single one of those statistics, all the measurables go to Patrick Mahomes. It's been unbelievable to watch him play, and we are no doubt watching something that has never happened before in the NFL.
Yeah, it just pump the brakes. I know everyone's going to love it, but pump the brakes.
How long do you think Andy's going to go?
Dude, he's going to go indefinitely. I feel like that guy's got nothing else besides football and maybe food in his repertoire that he wants to go. And if you're if you're a football coach,
he's like an old general. He'll die on his horse. They're going to have to bury him on his horse.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to Braxton Berrios, Miami Dolphins wide receiver, joins the program right after this. Welcome back to Pushing the Pile. Mike Renner, Kyle Long, and we have Braxton Berrios joining the desk. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me.
How's the car wash been?
It's been good.
Head spinning a little?
Yeah, I think we're about halfway.
Okay.
That's good.
Oh,
we're warmed up, ready to go.
I got to chime in, though. He looks better and smells better than anybody I've walked by today. He came over here.
I
just got the air of greatness. Like, you came over here, and I was like, you can sit next to me anytime you want.
That makes me feel very comfortable.
So we're sitting next to a Super Bowl champion. You were with the 2018 Patriots. You unfortunately were on IR at the time. We were actually talking yesterday. We saw Lewis Seen, back end of the roster guy, getting into an Uber. Do the back end of the roster guys, practice squatters, IR guys, are they like letting it loose Super Bowl week? Is this kind of like a fun time for them, or do they have to keep it tame? Do they still have to?
No, I think you keep it tame. You know, I think the biggest part about it is going into it. It's like, you know, your coach sets the stage. You're like, we're still here for football. It's going to be a show, right? Like, there's gonna be so much things going on. It's gonna be a circus, but like, we're still here for football. Keep that the main thing. So no, I think they're, you know, like we were. I think they're pretty honed in.
Okay, you were with the Dolphins this past year, heading into free agency. What was going through your mind when we saw that Tyreek Hill interview at the end of the year? What was that?
Yeah, I think it's tough. You know, I think, of course, you know, the season ended right there. You know, you're frustrated. A lot of different things happen, and you know, it's just you're not happy with anything. You know, he obviously, you know, kind of walked back and, you know, apologized for the things he said. It was out of competitive spirit, or, you know, but you hate that as his teammate, right? Because, you know, you just went to war, you know, since late July, and, you know, the first minute after those things get said. So the good thing is, you know, we've been with him, we know him, and, you know, he walked it back. So we took it for what it is and kind of pushed it past.
So you said before you were not only a Miami Dolphins fan growing up, but you were a University of Miami fan. Obviously, you played for both now. Should Cam Ward be the #1 overall pick? What are your thoughts on that, man?
You know, I don't know about that. I haven't done enough research around all the other prospects.
Yeah.
I think he's a stud. He had a phenomenal year, obviously. Tremendous athlete, can create, you know, post play, can run the ball. I mean, he really has everything it takes. If he's the #1 pick, I think is a different question. But I think he's going to be a good player in this league.
How many yards were you putting up if you had Cam Ward at quarterback? You had 679 last year.
That would have been.
What kind of numbers were you putting up?
I don't know. That would have been a different year. I mean, I'm hoping 1,000. I mean, just the scrambling, the after, and all the things they did. I mean, that offense, you know, at its best, and really for most of the year, I mean, was pretty unstoppable. You know, if they had a, you know, average defense, they would have been in the playoff.
When I think unstoppable, I think about I spent 1 year in Kansas City at the end of my career, and I was on IR for most of it. It was Tyreek's last year in Kansas City, the year that Burrow and Jamar went crazy at Arrowhead, and they started calling it Burrowhead. First off, disrespectful.
Crazy.
Mad disrespectful.
Crazy. Off one game.
And people were like, well, there goes the biggest club in Patrick Mahomes' bag, the driver. That's Tyreek Hill. Take the top off the defense. What is it that stands out to you most about that Chiefs offense that is able to always change, always adapt to whatever the scenario is? What stands out to you the most about Andy Reid's offense with Patrick Mahomes?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you look at the season, right, and they've had a decent amount of injuries, right? Like a lot of playmakers on IR, and somehow, some way, they find a way to plug and play. And I think they do a great job of, letting Mahomes be Mahomes, right? You know, like, let him call the game, let him do his magic. But also, I think they have an incredible system of, you know, everybody knows kind of their role, and when, you know, a role opens up, you go fill it. And nobody has to do anything extraordinary because they have so many good playmakers. And at the end of the day, when everything breaks down, you have one of the best in Mahomes, one of the best in Travis, and those are your 1-2 punch on scramble drill. And, you know, it's amazing that the way that they've have not missed a stride with all the stuff that they've had going on this year. It's very impressive.
And one guy we've seen emerge as a real star, obviously we saw Rashee Rice have a ton of success, but he was taken from us early in the season. Hollywood Brown was in the training room.
Same thing.
Xavier Worthy, though, came around in a big way in the AFC Championship. What stands out to you about his game?
I mean, obviously, he first and foremost, everybody says he's fast. But I think the same thing. I think, you know, he comes out of college and you know what he does great, and they let him do that. And they find different ways to get the ball in his hands and let him go be a playmaker. And I think that's what it is. You know, I don't think the scheme is anything crazy with the Chiefs, you know, but I think they get their playmakers the ball in space and let them do the rest. And it's just, you know, it's a lot of quick stuff, get it out of his hands, don't get sacked. And then again, scramble drill. They're one of the best in the league at it.
I often said when I was sitting in those offensive meetings, because I was an offensive guard and offensive tackle, I always said the game that you're playing out there, it's a completely different game. It's not that, I don't have a respect for what you guys are doing, because you're coming down and digging guys out and crack blocking front side and going and stalking a safety. Like, I see that, and I respect it. Was there ever a time where you're like, is there an instance in your mind where you can remember saying, God, that game inside is so much different, I don't want to play it? Was there one specific time?
I don't know about specific time. In college, I lived with 3 linemen. 3 offensive linemen. So like after, again, like camp, like my hamstrings, right? My legs are done. They're just upper body is crushed. And it's just like you really, and would watch film together, obviously. So we'd watch the last game, on Sunday, we'd be sitting in the living room. And for the first time, really, I'm looking at what they do, because they're like, hey, like, watch him, he picks me, da-da-da. And you're like, wow, that is a different game. And they just, every single play, get after it. Yeah. And I have all the respect in the world for them, because like you said, we block, we can go across the middle, we can get lit up. But you guys, every single play, strain.
Yeah, but I don't want to get hit like you guys do.
That's fair.
The coach, my high school coach, let me line up in the dot one time.
Okay. And
I took the handoff, and it was in a goal line situation in practice. And the guy who lit me up below my knees was the guy who I took the carry from. He was our running back. He was at safety in this drill. Lit me up. And I remember I went to the sideline. I was like, do not ever give me the ball again.
Yeah. No, it's amazing that, like, you look at the body type of a nose tackle, and then you look at called a slot receiver, and it's like these two people, they play the same game. Yeah. Like, his job is to tackle him, and my job is to do everything I can not to get tackled by him. Let's take a cornerback, let's take a safety, maybe an outside linebacker, but like, especially screens, like, don't cut back. Like, do not go inside. Like, that's dangerous.
All right, we had to ask you about this. You and your girlfriend, Alex Earl, famously have over 7 million combined followers on TikTok.
Most hers.
She has most of those?
Yep.
How was the mood in the household when TikTok was set to be banned a couple weeks ago? What was that like?
I think you can go to her page, and that will explain everything. it was absolute mayhem. Yes, it was mayhem.
What was when it got relieved? What was like? Surprise?
I said, I told you. I said, go check it. It's back up. Like, we're good. Like, you're okay. No, it was not a fun time. Very worrisome, but I was reassuring. You're gonna be good. It's coming back. It's not going away. And luckily it did.
I love social media. It's a huge part of. It's been a huge part of my career. I got on Twitter in 2012.
Twitter was
and I had
OG.
A number of head coaches and GMs that were like, "You can't tweet that," or like, "You need to take that down." And I've probably had a lot of money go out of my bank account.
You're gonna say, have you got better about that?
Because of Twitter, I've gotten a lot better about that. I still need some work.
Hey, you're here now.
I think me and Mike are going to do a get ready with me maybe tomorrow.
I would actually love to see.
Do you have any tips?
Yeah,
get ready with me.
Absolutely. Just tell a story. Like, that's it. Like, tell whatever it is. Tell a story. And like, really, like, we know what we're doing, but like, your whole audience, like, they have no idea what the back end of all this is. They see you on TV and all that, but they don't know the back end. So like, you tell a story that you all of a sudden become convicting, and then you gain more and more followers.
Yeah, you become
distraction roles.
You become human.
Exactly.
Like, they have to get ready too.
Yeah, one leg in the pant first,
dude.
It's unbelievable.
Or like I chafe a lot, so I've been putting on the chub rub on my thighs.
Chub rub. See,
chub
like that's
it's like Vaseline.
A, sponsorship.
Okay.
Right? Like, they hear that, they're gonna come to you. But B, like,
but I can't
I'm sure
show
there's a lot.
That application.
Not show it, but you can tell
it. Is chub rub like a brand name, or is that just
chub
what
rub.
you're putting it on?
Chub rub.
I was wondering the same thing.
I don't know what that is.
No, it is. It's like a little stick.
But the other thing is, you realize in the internet world, internet community, how many people have the same exact things or like live the same life as you. Like, there's so many people who'd be like, dude, same. Like, I didn't know you struggled with that too. Yeah.
Or, wow, that's how I measure my coffee grinds too. Like some obscure thing.
Yeah, something like that. That's.
All right, we're gonna put you on the spot.
Or not.
We're gonna show some photos here to you of you, and we're gonna ask what was going through your mind in the moment. All right. First one.
That was my high school jersey retirement like 2 weeks ago. I was very proud of myself. I think that was like the coolest thing in the world for me, to like have my high school jersey retired and to be the only one at my high school. Like, that was cool.
Kyle, did you get your jersey retired?
Yeah, actually, I got it retired way later, like you. Retired? I got it way later. Yeah. My older brother Chris got his like while he was in high school.
That's kind of crazy.
So I spent my whole NFL career like, my coach hated me. Enough. Yeah, my coach hated me. But everybody's always talking about you got to protect your inner child. And I think that's really important.
Yes.
To listen to that little kid in there and to heal anything. that is like the biggest inner child moment, is to
Absolutely.
get that validation for when
Fully.
you were that age. You get your jersey, you get the standing ovation from the people at your high school. Were there any, like, was there a specific teacher that you saw and you were so happy to see him?
There was actually, great story, Miss Dobbins. Never forget it, 9th grade biology. I had a 92.3. We were on a 7-point scale. I obviously walk in there and I say, Miss Dobbins, like, could I, like, give me a .2, 92.5, it rolls up to a 93. She shut me down. Said no shot, right? So didn't give me the bump over .2. So I'm literally sitting there before I'm about to go on and take a speech, and I turn to my left and I see Miss Dobbins. I look at her and I said, I still remember. And I go, I'm going to tell everybody.
Yep.
So obviously unscripted, I go up there. That's the first thing I said. I said, everybody give it up for Miss Dobbins. Like, she didn't give me .2.
She didn't
she
roll
gave me
my
a B.
point forward.
Literally. Yeah. So that was like one of like those cool like high school moments that you don't think about until, you know, you're back.
I was trying to go from D to C.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
68 to 72.
Different.
Get me to 72.
Everything's relative, right?
I'm just over here trying to get my jersey retired. Only one at the booth who doesn't have it, unfortunately.
Yeah, whatever high school, exactly.
Uni High. Come on, let's
do
go.
your petition right now.
Braxton, thanks so much, buddy.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for coming on.
We'll be back. We'll have Warren Sapp on, I believe, after the break.
Oh, wow, another you guy.
After this.
I'm talking about.
We got another legend from the U joining the program, Warren Sapp, Hall of Fame defensive tackle. You were from, this is incredible to me, the exact same high school as Jalen Carter. When did you know, or when did you hear about him first, that this guy was going to be like a dude?
They was talking about him playing both ways in high school like I did and some different things, and then they were saying he was going to Georgia, so I mean, he was always like that. There's always somebody that'll pop for playing like that.
Yeah, what's in the water?
You know Hendrickson is.
Yeah, Trey.
Yeah.
Trey's.
What's in the water? D-line
It's
City?
unbelievable.
Well, they're
Just a bunch
killing
of
all the
dogs.
fish in Lake Apopka right now. You don't need to find out what's in the water. Other than that, no. It's just a small town that we always like to say we show up and show out.
Yeah, and showing out is what Jalen Carter's been doing all year long. And we wanted to do a little show and tell with a little O-line, D-line, what to expect from Jalen Carter going up against that Chiefs interior. Kyle, you want to take it away?
Well, me and Warren are old heads now, so we can talk about it probably better than we can do it. But when I'm thinking about Jalen Carter, I just think about how he is always going to have the advantage because of his explosiveness, his ability to attack edges. I liken to him a guy like Ndamukong Suh, where you know it's coming, but this guy, Jalen Carter, has even more tools in the bucket. Ndamukong Suh, when I was a guard, he would line up at the cock three and he would just test your will every single play. And eventually the pot will crack and he's going to get there and it's going to be 7-7-7.
Or you lock him up and he wouldn't get a sack.
That never happened. That never happened. That never happened.
Sure
but Jalen is attacking edges. He's not just running to darkness. What stands out to you most about Jalen Carter's rushing ability, playing against the run? What stands out to you the most now that you're a coach?
His power is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I want him to utilize more edge to that power and be able to snatch and move and different things. And what they've been doing now is using the game off of the power where he normally goes. And that's how they won the game with the last 2 rushes in the championship game. So I just watch him, and it's got to be a unit. You know that.
Yeah.
It's got to be a unit. And he's the spark plug to that unit. And his ability to get off the ball and penetrate, they got to stop that.
Again, it's been something we've seen in Philadelphia for a while. When I was playing, it was Fletcher.
Yeah.
And Fletcher was just like a junkyard dog, but he was 6'6", 320. They got the same kind of thing now with Jalen, so it's important to your point.
He's not the only elite 3 tech in this game, though. Chris Jones on the other side of the football. He's going up against, though, 2 massive guards in Mekhi Becton, Landon Dickerson, 2 guys who go 350 plus. What was your approach when you faced a bigger guard versus when you were facing a lighter guard? Obviously, he's one of the quickest 3 techs in NFL history.
Well, as you see how much taller he is than me, low man wins in
leverage,
the trenches. So that's what I always depended on, my
Go to the
leverage,
ball?
my ability to get off the ball and put him in an uncomfortable position because he's going backwards. And I'm going forward. And I always tell my D lineman at Colorado, if I told you to block yourself going backwards, could you do it? No, you tell me get away from me. So how does he do it? So just put him in a position where you can go in his living room, take his remote, and put the TV on what you want to watch.
You talk about leverage monsters. I remember when I got in the league, it was Geno Atkins who gave me nightmares. He was
underneath you.
He was leverage. He could attack edges, and he'd set up speed with the power. He'd give you the power so you'd stop your feet, and then he'd get to your edge.
And flip. Yep.
And I see a lot of that from Chris Jones, too. People see Chris Jones at
He's coming at you at that. Yeah.
He shows you bull, and he can get to your edge.
That's how you do it.
Oh, my goodness. I hated that. So we're in for some great defensive line play in the Super Bowl. Because you're coaching, who do you have your guys watch? If you ever turn the game on Sunday, watch this guy.
Oh, no, never that. We bring in the tape, and we have a plethora of guys all year long because you can't cookie cut.
Yep.
Every guy's a little different. When we watch it, Arden's going to look at it this way, BJ's going to look at it that way, Shane's going to look at it that way, and the other kid's going to look at it that way.
Yeah.
You just show them a bunch of different things. You give them ideas because it's never one move that's going to get you home.
Sticks.
Yeah, you got to work on. Try a new pair of shoes out.
Yeah.
How was it getting back into coaching? How was it?
No, this is my first time.
Yeah, they're getting in at all.
No, getting in at all. Listen, I tell people when you're my age, pick your boss. Don't pick the job. My boss is the best. I got the best boss in America, so I love it.
We love Dion on our show.
Is he realistically an NFL head coach in the future, or is he college through and through?
Why isn't he the Cowboys coach?
Jerry Jones?
No, why? So
that's
Jerry
who picks
Jones,
it. That's who picks the coach.
I understand that.
So that explains it, right?
I just feel like that would be such a home run for the Dallas Cowboys because I've seen what kind of leadership he brought to Colorado.
I'm at Colorado, and we there now, and we in a good position.
Gotcha.
And we love our administrators and our kids.
All right, tell us what you have going on here with the James Hardy Hall of Fame Invitational.
You know, James Hardy is America's #1 brand of sighting, and what they're doing is partnering with some PGA champions and some Hall of Famers coming together to play a pro-am, and every birdie, they donate money. We're going to make them give up the whole $100,000 to the Habitats for Humanity. So we're going to go out and have a great time and donate some money to a wonderful cause.
You a golfer? Did you play over? Did you hit over the PXG over there?
They got the simulator over there.
Yeah.
I just broke a sweat over there.
Did you?
I had to call it quits after.
I broke a sweat walking here.
We are in New Orleans. It's sticky down here.
I'm from the South, too, so that's what it's supposed to be. So, and I had a crawfish boil last night. So
we might get a little bit of that later.
Alligator sausage this morning for breakfast. We had alligator links.
War, thanks so much, man. Thanks for joining the program. Appreciate you. Good luck at Colorado.
Tell Pops I say what up.
I will.
All right, we'll be back right after this, going through the storylines once again that we played off the top for the Super Bowl. Coming up next. Welcome back to Pushing the Pile. Mike Renner, Kyle Long, and we have Pete Prisco joining the show for our debate segment.
It's not Tuesday.
That we do every Tuesday. Technically a Wednesday, but, well, we didn't have a show yesterday, Pete, so we got to get it out today. It's going to be a little different this time, though. I'm going to play judge. I'm going to throw it to you guys, and you two go back and forth.
Okay.
I moderate. I throw some nuggets in here and there, but we'll start with this. What does Patrick Mahomes need to be the GOAT QB? Pete kicks off.
Win.
That's it. Win this Sunday.
Because he's not done. And so this makes him Jordan. I've said it all along.
Okay.
Magic didn't three-peat. Larry Bird didn't three-peat.
You're throwing different sports at me, Pete.
Michael Jordan three-peated twice. And that's what made Michael Jordan great. And so I think the three-peat takes him to the greatest. And he's only 29 years old. When you compare his numbers to Brady when he was 29, they're better across the board. And he wouldn't be done. So three-peating 4, and probably could have had another one. That I think he's the greatest.
In 21,
he's the GOAT.
When the Bengals got him.
Yeah, that was actually one of their best teams.
I think that when you're talking about the greatest of all time, as it pertains to football, there can be no gray area. Because right now, if I were to ask every single person in here who the GOAT is, they would say
Brady.
Tom Brady. You have to win this one. And whether it's a 4-peat next year or another one down the road, I think that's what's necessary for him to become viable for that conversation for greatest of all time. Because
I'm siding with Kyle.
You get the 3-peat, you're in the room.
Yeah.
You get 3-peat plus another one,
so
you're sitting right there at the desk arm wrestling Tom Brady for the GOAT.
You're saying if he wins next year, if he wins this one, wins next year, gets 4 in a row, then he's the GOAT.
GOAT.
I say he gets the GOAT now.
I'm siding with...
There's too much gray there.
Here's the
I like gray.
Brady has 7 Super Bowls. This will be 4 for Mahomes. Brady has 5 Super Bowl MVPs. This could be his 4th for Patrick Mahomes. 3 NFL MVPs, only 2
How many
for
years,
Mahomes.
though?
Yeah, but it's the greatest of all time, not... And it's not like Mahomes' peak in terms of just like performance like if you're just doing peak performance, I feel like Manning, Rodgers are guys who enter that conversation for like years of dominance per, like if you're just going like peak level of performance, who was their highest high? Then those guys enter, and I don't even think Mahomes gets into like that echelon just yet, because he has, for as much as they've won in the past few years, it's not like his numbers have been anything spectacular. I mean, he hasn't even been an all-pro the past few years. So,
well, some of that's fatigue. Some of that's the fact that they've had to reshuffle because of the fact that they just keep winning.
I mean, no. I mean, they had
offensive
line
They sent their best receiver out the door. We just had Braxton Berrios on, and I said, you know, the Chiefs send the best receiver out the door, and they get different and better the next year.
And look, they missed their number one wide receiver. We forget about that. He didn't play this year.
And 2 and 3.
Right? Rasheed Rice didn't play this year. So the offensive line is an issue. And by the way, he's the only one with the clean slate on comebacks when he's down 3 and 7.
You're right.
Nobody else, not Brady, not any of them has ever been.
Was
there.
he 12 for 12?
I think it's something like along those lines.
Something ridiculous.
Okay, which coach needs this win more? Andy Reid to be the GOAT, or Nick Sirianni to get the question marks off his back in Philly?
Look, if Andy Reid loses this game, the city won't burn. But if Nick Sirianni loses this game, he very well could have a knock on the door next week, which is a shame because of the fact that Nick Sirianni has led this team back to the Super Bowl
knock
again.
on the door for what?
It could be
time for draft. Time for draft.
Big Howie. You know, hey, with this roster, you couldn't win that game. All I'm saying is the pressure is on Nick Sirianni, not on Andy Reid.
There's our headline. I love when we get a headline from Kyle. Sirianni, win or else.
Well, I'll tell you what. The city is going to be, if it's not a knock on the door from Howie, the city's going to be out there throwing tomatoes at the office.
Pitchforks.
That's just the way that it goes, man.
Two Super Bowls in 3 years?
Hey, look. The question is Andy Reid or Nick Sirianni.
Okay. Yeah. Nick Sirianni's the answer.
There you go.
Yeah.
But not because he's going to get fired.
He's not going to get fired, but people are going to say, hey, you had the Monstars. Yeah. You had the Space Jam roster. We got you Saquon Barkley. We paired it with the Special Forces offensive line and a quarterback who can get you a cheat code first down on 4th down. There are so many answers to the test within that Eagles roster.
I'm not going to.
Nick Sirianni doesn't do it.
Not going to. There was their headline. Kyle has Nick Sirianni fired if he loses the game.
We know how Philadelphia is.
But if Reid does lose the game, big deal. He's going to continue to coach. He's not going anywhere.
He's going to keep going to the NC Championship.
And he's going to chase down Don Shula. And when he chases down Don Shula, he's going to be the greatest coach of all time.
There you go.
All right, true or false? If Saquon Barkley rushes for 125-plus yards, the Eagles win this game. It's a big sign.
False.
Ooh.
Because I think he's going to rush for 125 yards. And I picked the Chiefs. Whoever has the ball last is going to win the game, particularly if it's the Chiefs, because of the things that we said about Patrick Mahomes time and time and time again.
I'm with you. But you know what? I'm going to say he's not going to get 125. I think he's going to get like 100. I think they're going to keep him in check. I don't think he's getting that long run. This team tackles pretty well.
Yeah.
And a lot of the teams where he gets the long runs don't tackle very well. This team tackles very well. I don't think he's going to go for 100, but so the answer to that question is true.
I got off the elevator at the hotel last night, and I saw Landon Dickerson. That guy is as big as a Mack truck, okay? I think you would get about 87 yards behind that Philadelphia offensive. You get 93.
I got off the elevator, and I was standing next to Mailata.
Oh, my God.
My God, he's like a square.
Yeah.
He's enormous.
Well, that entire line is built that way, from Lane to Mackay, Cam, Landon, and Jordan Mailata. It's unbelievable to watch.
So Saquon had 125-plus 8 times this year. They only lost one of those. Do you remember which one that was? Anyone?
No.
Anyone?
Commanders.
Yeah. Week 16. So chances are if he goes for 125,
and that was when Hurts got hurt.
Yes. So will Super Bowl 59, last one here before we go to break, will Super Bowl 59 be the first Super Bowl since 1998 where a running back wins the MVP? I feel like I know your guys' answers after the last one.
No, it will not be. The quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs is going to win the MVP again because he's going to do what we just talked about. Ball in the fourth quarter, down the field and go.
Yeah, the MVP will be a quarterback because the storyline sets up for it. If Patrick Mahomes does it, he's led the Kansas City Chiefs to a three-peat, and he's on his way to the GOAT conversation, or he's right there at the pedestal of the GOAT chair. And for Jalen Hurts, a guy who essentially outplayed Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl loss against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Pretty big fumble.
Look, I'm kind of pandering to those Philly fans that I just pissed off about their coach. But I'll say this. It's going to be a quarterback. It's going to be so much fun to watch. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes.
You know, it's funny, because 1998 was when Terrell Davis won the MVP, right? Mm-hmm. And he wasn't even the MVP of his own team. John Elway was the MVP of the Denver Broncos. So
he did go. He did go for over 125 plus yards though in that game.
Yep.
All right. If the Chiefs win, they should throw Travis Kelce a bone for the MVP. Obviously, last three, Patrick Mahomes has won it. There's a chance that if Travis Kelce has a good game,
no shot,
no zero,
no shot. The guy's got everything under
career
the sun.
achievement.
Okay,
he's got to have to be the MVP. Because if he has 2 touchdowns. And 120 yards, that means Mahomes is going to have 4 touchdowns
and another
and
one
320.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
but then you don't think they'll throw him like, hey,
absolutely not.
The Swiftie media voters.
Is there ever just too much good happening to a guy, Travis Kelce? You know, you go win another Super Bowl. Taylor Swift's up there celebrating.
Does he retire, though?
We don't need an MVP trophy for Travis. You know, he's got too much stuff.
All I know is he needs a better post-game speech this time. If he does win the MVP, he needs to redeem himself. You remember last year's? We started singing Viva Las Vegas.
Just get him some beers. It'll be good.
Don't get him any beers,
Get him
actually.
some
That's
garage.
probably the last thing we need, because he chased that moment pretty hard. All right, will Taylor Swift affect this game in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Terrible. Okay, we can skip that.
That's a bad question.
Boo! I think Kai's wrote that one.
Will this Super Bowl play out like last time, where we get points, or will it play out like the Eagles have been playing all year, where we see a lower scoring game?
No, loose. Always loose.
Always loose. Always loose.
Patrick Mahomes is 15-0 in domes.
Yeah.
And he averages over 300 yards passing in domes. The Eagles aren't stopping him. And remember, it used to be Patrick Mahomes. The way to defend him was make him be patient.
Yeah.
And he's evolved now where being patient is okay.
Yep.
And I think he's going to carve him up down the field.
Yeah, nobody does better against single high than Patrick Mahomes. And I look for Vic Fangio to be in that shell coverage, bend but don't break, keep it in front of you. And eventually I think the Chiefs might be able to run the football there. Maybe he rolls down a safety and then Patrick makes you pay.
I think it'll be low scoring. I think the Eagles defense is good. It was since week 5 on.
They're great.
The number 1 rushing and passing defense in the NFL.
They are great.
But when teams had to throw the ball on them, including the Rams in that playoff game, they threw it on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think they're beatable if you can block Jalen Carter, and that's a big if. But
what did Dan Marino say? There is no defense for the perfect ball.
None.
And they got a guy in Kansas City who's here in New Orleans this week who can throw the perfect ball.
And when you're playing a defense that plays so much zone, they have zone sitters.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce is one of the all-time great zone sitters.
Window finder.
Hopkins is a good, he can go sit in the zone. They can do that. So I think if they play zone the whole game, he's going to pick them apart.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but we got Pete on the desk for the rest of the hour.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Hey, oh.
Last segment, we did the great debate. Now we're doing the greatest debate. We're debating who's the GOAT. Is Travis Kelce, at tight end, the GOAT?
No.
Of his position?
He's not. Rob Gronkowski is. Rob Gronkowski was an all-world blocker and an all-world receiver. And Travis Kelce is an all-world receiver and not an all-world blocker. He's a willing blocker, but the other guy was like a tackle. I mean, when he blocked. You look at the yards per catch, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, Gronkowski is 18 for a tight end. That's incredible. So Gronkowski, to me, is the best tight end ever.
It's unbelievable what Rob Gronkowski was able to accomplish in his career. And to think that these guys are like the same age. We could almost still have Rob Gronkowski playing. But Travis's run in Kansas City will be unmatched, in my opinion, by any tight end ever. I mean, the only guy who really concerns me is the guy in Las Vegas right now, Brock Bowers. He's fantastic from a production standpoint.
So you think Kelce's the best?
I think Kelce, if he sticks around for another couple of years, could cement himself as the greatest tight end that ever played the game of football.
The one thing Kelce has wholesale over Gronk is availability. Kelce was always there.
Yep.
He was always healthy. Gronk,
15 yards per catch, by the way, for a tight end
as
in his career.
As Gronk was.
Unbelievable.
And I do think, like, peak, who was the best of their peak, I'm not arguing that it was Gronk.
Gronk was a created player on Madden. Let's make him as big as we can, as muscular as we can. Let's max out his run blocking traits, max out all his red zone traits.
If you ask me who's had the more star-studded and that kind of career, I would go with Kelce. If you ask me who the better player was, I would go with Gronkowski. And would you agree with me on that?
That is always the great GOAT debate, is do you want peak? Who's the best, like, literally at any single point in time?
Right.
I agree it's Gronk.
Right.
If you want, like, you draft them and you get their entire career, I think you'd want Kelce, because he was always there. And he's playing until late 30s.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
if you look at it from that standpoint, yes, Kelce's had a better.
Is the best ability.
Yeah, but the best player, that was the question, right? Who's the best tight end? The GOAT tight end? He was the GOAT to me. And we just discount the old timers, by the way.
Yep.
Well,
come on.
different game.
Kellen Winslow
It is a
changed
different
the
game.
game.
If Kellen Winslow was in this game,
Changed the game.
If he was in this game, the way it's played now, he'd catch 160 passes.
I remember my rookie year, went to the Pro Bowl, and I saw, and you get one little star when you go. You get a star for every Pro Bowl you make. So my jersey said long 75. I had one little star. I saw Tony Gonzalez, and his jersey. It was like it was like
It was 50 states.
It was like it was the United States flag. But the guy had stars shoulder to shoulder, and they went around the front.
John Mackey. I mean, back in the day.
Mackey.
I mean, what?
That I didn't get to watch play, but
Didn't get to watch John Mackey.
No, he didn't.
But Dad always said Kellen Winslow changed the game.
Kellen Winslow in today, okay, 160, maybe 140.
Okay.
Hell, Bowers was on pace to catch 100. What did he catch? He was on pace at one point to catch 130.
Find out how long he can do that.
Zach Ertz, what did he have? 125 that one year, 127? He could catch 140, Kellen Winslow, in today's game.
All right, Saquon Barkley. Is he having the GOAT running back season of all time? I guess that would be redundant to say of all time. But is he having the GOAT running back season?
I'm hard-pressed to say this is the greatest season for a running back because of the fact that he may have one of the greatest offensive lines to ever play in front of him, in conjunction with the fact that they can get an extra set of downs every fourth down. And who are they going to give the ball to on fourth down? It's Jalen Hurts. Saquon gets to go and do the runs that Saquon probably enjoys in terms of down and distance and scheme. When it comes time to put your neck and your face in it, they're making Jalen Hurts do that. When Saquon Barkley gets inside the 3-yard line, they're giving the ball to Jalen Hurts. I think that if Nick Sirianni, Kellen Moore, and Jalen Hurts would allow for Saquon to score touchdowns in the low red area, I might be able to say this is the greatest because of the touchdown numbers. They're way down this year because of the tush push.
It's in the conversation, obviously. And if he has another big game and they win it, then I think there's no question it is.
TD went for 2001 Super Bowl, right? Terrell Davis.
Yep.
And his one. So
98.
If he wins it, I think it's going to be hard to argue, at least from like a accolade statistical perspective. Not many.
You know what's interesting is you remember those old Denver teams. They were the kind of the teams. No matter who ran the ball in that offense, and he was special. Like remember Mike Anderson would go in, Alanis Gary would go in. They all run the ball because it was that zone scheme, and that was like back then you could chop on the backside. Remember? Cut. You could cut those guys on the back of their legs, and so you'd see him start one way, come back, chop, and boom. So it was different. This team is made because of the offensive line. Here's the question you have to ask: would Barkley in New York, what would he have this year had he stayed in New York? And it's a legitimate question. What would he have? Give me a ballpark figure.
1,200.
1,200 yards is where I was going to land on.
I mean, you're basically parroting PFF talking points from a decade ago. We were talking about
I don't want to hold any of the success that Saquon Barkley has had against him because of his offensive line.
Before PFF was around, I hated the running back position. You can go back and look it up.
There are very few. That's why, I think Barry Sanders, people consider him the GOAT running back, is because he's like one of the few that did it with relative nobodies along the offensive line.
And by the way, we talk about Emmitt Smith and all the yards he piled up. They had one of the greatest offensive lines of all time as well.
Very few did it behind average to below average.
Barry did. You're right, though.
It's a symbiotic relationship there.
What do we got here?
We got a little something joining the set here.
Oh, beautiful.
What?
Thanks, Steve-O.
There's some andouille sausage on there.
Wow.
That's a boil.
Fry.
That isn't just.
Can I get my fingers in here right now?
Look at that. That isn't just crawfish.
And I heard earlier, Pete, You've not had a crawfish.
I haven't.
Do you even know how to eat the crawfish?
No, I do not.
You grab the head and you twist the tail off. It's like a mini lobster.
Like this.
Okay.
It's
How do you eat that?
Here, give me that. I'll just eat that. You can twist it. I'm going to twist.
You twist.
You gotta,
I'll crack the chest
you give it like
here.
a suck. You suck the inside. You don't bite the. There you go.
You know what? When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Hit your boy up.
Sorry.
No,
Not
you're good.
bad.
Louisiana fish fry.
Great
Thank
flavor.
you so much.
Great flavor.
No,
No heat.
I will say, as far as like regional food traditions go, New Orleans is pretty damn good. There's not many that I would take over.
But like I said,
Cuisine.
This is good. Lobster's better. Shrimp's better.
Well,
no offense.
You're paying a little bit more.
But I
It's
will
like
say this: I
saying-
love the spice of it. I'll have that plate over there. You can have some of that
Only
andouille
problem-
sausage. That's one of the best things going. right
Only
here.
problem I'm running
wow,
into here is there's just not enough meat. We got to get a bigger arthropod. Arthropod?
Dude, I don't know.
What the hell are we eating? What is a crawfish?
By the way,
It's nature's
one of the most underrated New Orleans things that there is that andouille sausage. Right there. Underrated.
Is that Bill Gates bugs diet? Watch out now, big bugs.
Here, I'm gonna make
we'll
the
be eating bugs.
most insane food thing ever said on a show for New Orleans, and they're gonna get mad at me. Ready? Beignets are funnel cake.
They are.
Oh, here we go.
Zeppelis for the Italians, and you go to any Italian feast, it's Zeppeli. They're the same thing. Funnel cake, Zeppeli, and beignets. True or false?
You can't get a beignet at the state fair. You can get.
You're
funnel
acting
cakes.
like that makes it bad. Those things are all great.
That's insulting to the beignet.
This is good.
That it's what?
That's sausage.
I like the
Potatoes are
potato.
good.
Then again, I'm an Irishman.
All right, let's get back
Yeah.
to some goats.
We can't. We got a mouthful of food.
Potatoes are goats.
Speaking of the Eagles and their offensive line, is this the best modern? Is this the GOAT modern offensive line? Because obviously comparing offensive line between eras very difficult. But I'd say in the last 15 years, is this current incantation of the Eagles the best offensive line you've seen over that span?
15 years?
Yes. Basically since like passing games have been in their current form.
Let me ask you this though: is this Eagles offensive line better than the one when Kelsey was on it from 2 years ago?
See, I think Becton, the addition of Becton, has been a bigger upgrade than the downgrade is from Kelsey to Jurgens.
And the progression of
'Cause
Jordan
Becton just,
Mailata
like-
as well.
Mailata's
And
better than he
Mailata
was.
is like an all-pro now, as it were, close to an all-pro, where he was not back then.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because Dickerson's probably better now than he was then too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
people forget he was a center in college.
Right. So yes, to answer your question, I think it is.
Yeah, I'm trying to just like historically, I don't remember one that not only just like there's some really good pass protecting offensive lines over the last 50 years, some really good run blocking offensive lines. There's not one that I think has been unquestionably the best at both in one season the way this Eagles one is. They just you have to bring your hard hat and helmet every single game.
Let me ask you this though: you don't think the one with Kelsey? You don't think Kelsey? I think Kelsey was much better than not much better, but
You're talking about the Brandon Brooks year.
But Kelsey was better than much better than Jurgens.
He was better. I don't know if it was much better.
He moved.
So you're
He
talking
moves
so
better.
like the one with Jason Peters, Brandon Brooks.
Jason Peters and Brandon Brooks were man eaters.
Those years might have been better. I mean, that's why they won that Super Bowl. So that was different. They've had this for a decade now.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to the old story. Draft big people. There's only so many of them on the planet who can play the game. I say it all the time. You know it. You lived it. You were part of it. If your line stinks, I don't care if Barkley is Barkley. If that line isn't any good, he's going, like you said, maybe for 1,200.
All right, last one here, real quick. The tush push is the GOAT play in the NFL right now.
In terms of what?
Just like,
I hate
is
it.
it the best play? Like with the effectiveness, Eagles specifically.
Is it effective? From that standpoint, absolutely. Do I enjoy it? I think it stinks.
I think pulling guards in any way is the GOAT play. Pulling a guard
the
or a
most
tackle.
biased thing.
Whether
You said
it's
a lot of
inside or
biased things.
outside.
I always love pulling guards.
Counters.
Yep.
You know, give me some counter action.
Yep.
Give me a running back with some
Do you
patience,
like
some
the
vision.
tush push?
I mean, no one likes the tush push. It's
Right.
objectively
The
like
owner
a
of the
boring,
Packers, the president of the
unexciting-
Packers, hates it.
He's trying to.
Can't stand it.
But it truly is. I mean, to ban the tush push is to ban the Eagles because they do it so much more than anyone else in the NFL. 10 times more than the Bills, who are second place, 3 times more than the team that did it in third place.
You know who hates
So,
the tush
like-
push? Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
His numbers would be even better.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Next hour, we got Pete power ranking every single player, every single starter in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Coming up right after this.
I'm cherry picking these sausages.
Those are good.
Welcome back to Pushing the Pile burlesque show on the desk here with this hour. We got Pete Prisco ranking every single football starter in the Super Bowl. You can find it on CBSSports.com, his article. But we got the man here himself to lay it all out.
By the way, real quick, see how his head's sweating from the andouille sausage?
My lips are still burning.
Leave me alone. Hey, mine does too. What am I talking about?
All right, we're going to start with the top 10 here. I'll read them off. We're going to talk, as we always do in the Goldilocks segment, who's too high, who's too low, who's just right. The top 10, Patrick Mahomes at 1, Saquon Barkley 2, Chris Jones 3, Jalen Carter 4, Lane Johnson 5, Creed Humphrey 6, Zach Bond 7, Trent McDuffie 8, Jordan Mailata 9, and then A.J. Brown rounds out the top 10. Who's too high, who's too low, who's just right, Kyle?
There's Lane Johnson at number 5. That's criminal. You know.
You saw him yesterday. Did he look like he'd be okay with being number 5? I
would put Chris Jones and Lane Johnson tied for 3rd. And then everybody else you want to put on the list, you can put them below that. But I think Lane is at that level at the right tackle position, has been for a decade now. He's unbelievable.
You're nitpicking. He's at 5.
You know what, Pete? He asked me a question, Pete. And I think Lane's that good. Look,
I think Lane's great, but
your list is great. Patrick and Saquon obviously up there. Chris Jones, Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter has to have a big game, has to have a huge game in order for me to put him above Lane Johnson on a GOAT list here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could see Lane Johnson going ahead of Jalen Carter, but I put Chris Jones.
You got no Joe Tooney on the list?
He's down a little way.
Disgusting.
That one does hurt for an offensive lineman.
Where's he playing?
You had though.
Anywhere.
Saquon Barkley at 2. Have you ever put a running back that high when you've done this?
No, absolutely not.
Highest you've ever put?
Yeah, absolutely not. He's special.
That much of a game changer.
I mean, look, their offense is all about him. It really is. And that's not to take away from Hurts, by the way, because I do think that Hurts' ability to pull the ball is also a big factor in their run game, and it helps open things up for Barkley, and that offensive line does too. But he's been special.
The only thing I'll say in this is that I love where you have Zach Bond. I don't have too many quibbles with where you have the rank for the top 10, but I love that you put Zach Bond, put some respect on his name, because I think a lot of people think what he's done this year is fake in some way, shape, or form, because he's never done it. Obviously, wasn't a starter for 4 years with New Orleans before.
He wasn't an
off-ball
off-ball backer.
He was a miscast.
Completely miscast, and he goes here, and I've been saying this all season since season ended. If his name was anything other than Zach Bond, if his name was Fred Warner, if his name was Patrick Willis, if his name was, one of those guys, he would be your defensive player of the year.
Yep.
That's how good this guy was. And so even down at 7 may even be too low. I might even have him above a guy like Creed Humphrey because he has been that important to this Eagles defense all year long.
We'll see how about his value, by the way. He's an unrestricted free agent. So we'll see. He gambled on himself. He signed a 1-year deal. And so now we'll see, because we're going to find out if the rest of the league thinks how we think that he is that special.
Well, you're not ranking this by pure value perspective, right? Because obviously he ain't going to command what A.J. Brown commanded. He ain't going to command what Jordan Mailata commanded. But I think a lot of people are going to see what he did this year. And I bet there turns out to be a pretty big market for him.
I would agree.
I love a guy who bets on himself like that. There's nothing better in sport than doing that, because there's a number of guys, myself included, who try to sign early, take a team-friendly deal to get some insurance to be covered for the next few years. A guy like Zach Bond goes out there, plays off-ball linebacker for the first time in the NFL, has a lot asked of him in the defense, the middle of that defense, and has been spectacular. And to your point, I think he maybe was the DPOY. And without a name, a guy like that shows up. It takes people a year to introduce themselves to the masses, to the layman's. But this guy Zach Bond has been on arrival. He was great for Philadelphia,
and he fits with what they want to do.
Yes.
Could this be, Pete? You have Chris Jones at 3, Jalen Carter at 4. Could this be a passing of the torch of sorts?
Yes.
With Jalen Carter in year 2, obviously Chris Jones, I believe now year 9 for him. Passing the torch?
And I said, we said that on a show last week. I said this could be the flip of it. Because Chris Jones has been that good. Now, the one thing we know about Chris Jones, he always shows up in the big games.
Oh, yeah.
This is the moment for Jalen Carter. If you're going to be that guy, you better show up in the big game. And he's done it so far, but he's got to do it in this one.
See, Jalen Carter is looking to try to change the game, and obviously so much of what the Chiefs do offensively can be foiled by Jalen Carter. If he's able to get Patrick on the ground, dent that pocket, the inside of the pocket where Patrick is trying to step up into it. He's thinking about 4 quarters and maybe overtime. Chris Jones will be meticulously planning his spots for the games, the biggest moments in the game. He has a unique sense of when we need to ramp it up to 11, and that's what Chris Jones does. He wins in the biggest moments.
You know what's funny is the one thing about that both of them, and it's kind of a little bit of a criticism of the both of them. They play better in the big games because they seem to play harder in the big games. Now,
that's why Chris Jones fell in the second round. I mean, people had effort concerns with his tape at Mississippi State.
And Carter had a bunch of concerns. But Carter, early in his career, the first part of the last season, and on it, there were moments where he didn't play hard all the time. I didn't, and that was a criticism of him. Now,
that was a criticism of the entire unit there in the middle.
Yeah, but now that guy plays almost every snap.
Yes,
he's a beast, and so I think it went on for him. And yes, to answer your question, I do think it will be the flip of it.
All right, one other guy I want to talk about here, because people at home might be a little surprised that you have Jordan Mailata over A.J. Brown. Obviously, one of those guys, a much bigger name, gets much more storylines when they read a book on the bench than the other. I think if Jordan Mailata read a book on the bench, no one even bats an eye, right? But I don't agree. I don't disagree with it. I know Kyle doesn't disagree with it. What have you seen, Kyle, over the course of Jordan Mailata's career in his ascendance from a guy who didn't even play football, got drafted in the 7th round, to now an all-pro caliber left tackle?
I think that's been the most impressive thing. Not just his body of work in the NFL, but understanding where he came from and how he got to the league and the unit that he got into with Coach Stoutland and being opposite Lane Johnson. I think that's been such a fantastic part of watching his progression as a football player. The more years you play in the league, the slower things happen in your brain in terms of you see things faster, stuff doesn't get on you quickly. He has done a great job through that evolution as an offensive tackle. It allows Coach Stoutland and that offense to do so many different things. Get Jordan on the outside. You can block down, all those things. And I think being in the right room is important, and I alluded to it. But being with a guy like Landon Dickerson this year, being in that room with Lane Johnson, it's paid dividends.
And, early in his career, he was a mauler who wasn't great in pass protection, and now he's become equally adept at both of them. And that's a sign of a guy who's worked at it. I mean, I saw him yesterday, and I was standing behind him, and I ain't exactly the biggest guy in the world, but I'm standing next to that guy, and I mean, and you're a big guy,
he's huge.
But he's just like a square.
Yeah,
it's imposing.
Yes.
Last thing here I want to know before we get to 11 through 34, it's just how insane this top 10 is. Like, if you do not have what these two teams are bringing to the table in terms of blue chip players, you just can't get on this football field. You ain't going to be a Super Bowl team. So I think, like, if you are a fan of the 30 other teams around the NFL and you don't have the sort of guys that can match up with this, you got 4 guys who are all in the mix there for the Chiefs for the best player in the NFL at their respective position. That's difficult to do. If you call Trent McDuffie a slot corner, I think all 4 are. And then you have 6 guys on the Eagles. Of those, I think 5 are all in the mix for conversation of the top player at their respective position. That is just top-end talent.
And the amazing thing about it is, and it goes back to something that I'm a big believer in it, but there's 3 offensive linemen in the top 10.
Yeah. And
that usually doesn't happen. And so I think that's a tribute to that side of the ball. And you mentioned Joe Tooney, and he's a guy that could have been,
Trey Smith could have been in there.
Yeah.
Number of guys.
A very talented Super Bowl. Because of that, we're going to rank every single starter. We're going to get to 11 through 34 on Pete's list right after this. Welcome back. We are here pushing the pile at the Media Center, downtown New Orleans, right near Bourbon Street. Got a little Lambeau Field for the draft, a little event there going on, a bunch of Radio Row. Everyone's down here. We had Pat McAfee right next to us. We have ESPN Radio right next to us. It is a little bit of a zoo when you walk around, a little bit intimidating. It's only my second time going to the Super Bowl.
It's an ADD nightmare. I want to say hey to everybody, stop and talk to everybody.
Mike, why don't you just give everybody else a free promo while you're on our air?
Well, they're watching us. But we got Pete Prisco's rankings here of every single starter in the Super Bowl. You can find them on CBSSports.com. And I hope we have a graphic for this so you don't have to trust me reading all names 11 through 34. But I'm just going to dive right into it. 11, Travis Kelce. 12, Joe Tooney. 13, Quinyon Mitchell. 14, Jalen Hurts. 15, Trey Smith. 16, Landon Dickerson. 17, Devontae Smith. 18, Justin Reed. 19, Nolan Smith. 20, George Karlaftis. 21, Xavier Worthy. 22, Dallas Goedert. 23, Leo Chanel. 24, Josh Sweat. 25, Nick Bolton. 26, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. 27, Cooper DeJean. 28, Milton Williams. 29, Darius Slay. 30, Drew Tranquil. 31, Mekhi Becton. 32, Jalen Watson. 33, Isaiah Pacheco. And 34, Jordan Davis. Did you catch all that? And if you didn't, we're going to rehash it. So who's too high, Kyle? Who's too low? And who's just right?
Well, the name that I see on here, George Karlaftis, he's at the 20 spot. But we talked about Chris Jones being a guy that steps up in big situations. He, to me, is a guy that has been big in big situations. Look, I don't have much issue with the list. I'm just going through here, taking a look at these guys right now. A lot of great players. We're so lucky to have the 11 through 33 be so star-studded. When you see a list that says middle of the pack that starts with Travis Kelce and Joe Thuney, you go, man, we're in for some.
Both of them out of the 10, but in the top 10. But I think because look, Kelce we know shows up in the big moments, but he didn't show up in the game against the Bills.
I was going to say, Pete, you've watched Kelce this year. You cannot realistically believe that he is the 11th best player in this game. He's obviously an impactful player for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you are taking players in a random draft to play this game, you are not drafting him 11th. You're not taking him over Joe Thuney.
Well, he also doesn't play a value position either, though.
But he is slow as all you know what at this point.
Not Thuney. I'm talking about Kelce.
Watch yourself.
Kelce.
I know.
Thuney plays a value position. He plays left tackle.
Hey, look, if it's the Super Bowl, if it's a championship game, if it's the playoffs, I want number 87 on my team. I got no issue with you having him at number 11.
I had people questioning he wasn't in the 10.
I got no issue with you having him at number 11.
Okay.
But then again, I understand where you're coming from. And the body of work this year speaks to the fact that Travis Kelce isn't quite the 87 that we've come to know and love so much over the last decade. But look, we all know, one time, it's like when I asked my old man, I say, could you still play? He said, I can give you one drive, 2 plays maybe. But Travis Kelce can give you one
against
Sunday.
The Texans, he gave you a lot more than one drive.
For everything.
And he wasn't good last week. So, look, I think he'll be good on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
He'll be good.
He's my too high. I'll give you my too low. And I think he's egregiously too low. 10-plus spots too low. I think Milton Williams, and you'll see it in free agency this year because I believe he's in free agency.
He is in free agency.
You'll see how too low he is. To me, he is as good a pass rusher as Jalen Carter. Now, he's not as complete a defender on the interior as Jalen Carter, but this guy is twitched up. And if he gets one-on-ones with Mike Caliendo, he's a guy that could take over this football game.
Milton Williams is a good player, and he's good. And I'm actually starting to work on my free agency rankings, and he's going to be pretty high up on that list. But the run defense isn't great. I mean, you can't knock them for that.
Disagree.
And so when you look at the list, okay, you say 10 spots too low? Who are you putting ahead of?
I would rather have him than Nolan Smith right now in this game.
Oh, no.
For the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, no.
Rather have him than Justin Reed.
I agree with you on the Nolan Smith.
I think Justin Reed's, by the way, Justin Reed's an unrestricted free agent as well. I think Justin Reed might be the most underrated player in the entire game.
That's fair. I think he's very
tackles, good near the line of scrimmage, can cover on the back end.
He had that pop on Devontae Smith last time.
I think Justin Reed's the most underrated player in the entire game. I think he's going to be enormous in this game on Sunday.
Really smart player, really tough player, guy who likes to get his nose in it, but also is really heady on the back end. Love Justin Reed. Love this whole group.
I mean, you could sit here and say that Worthy's too high, but I think where he is right now and what he's meant to them in the last 6 weeks of the season.
Where would Rashee Rice be on this list if he was healthy?
If he's healthy, he's
top 10?
No, probably like 13 or 14, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Xavier Worthy, I am not arguing. I think he's the guy who I thought was just right at 21. He is. We'll get to Hollywood Brown later because he hasn't been mentioned yet. I think he's a little too low also. But Xavier Worthy, the late season ascendance of him, ascendance, there we go, of him has been well deserved, and they finally, I think, figured out how to use him. He's a guy that can run more routes than your typical speed wide receiver. That's why I loved him so much in the draft, and that's why when the Chiefs got him, I was like, I think the rest of the NFL screwed up. But they didn't quite realize how just to deploy him, you have to give him free releases. If you get him a clean release off the line of scrimmage, dynamite. Guys have to get their hands on him early. If you can shut him down. And so I'm curious to see what the Philadelphia Eagles do because they like to play off. They like to play deep zone. They like to do that sort of stuff. It's been Vic Fangio's MO. But if you give him free releases, he is a guy that basically the entire route tree is at his disposal at that point.
Yeah, and he's proven to people that he's much more than just a go ball guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most important thing about him. He's little, so when you do get your hands on him, it's tough for him to get off the line.
Underneath stuff can turn into go balls. If you catch the ball at the right speed, if you're doing a mesh concept, if you're going underneath a check down in the old nomenclature, a guy like Xavier Worthy can turn that into a go ball in terms of yards after the catch. He can run out and up and around people. The issue early on in the season with Xavier Worthy was he was too damn fast, and his route concepts ended up out of bounds. He was catching the ball out of bounds.
And he wasn't catching the ball.
So they started throwing him the ball in the middle of the field. And what does he do? Then he picks where to run with it. Xavier Worthy's so dangerous.
By the way, I wrote my prediction out yesterday on CBSSports.com, and the prediction is that the Chiefs win and Worthy scores the game-winning touchdown in the final 2 minutes on a Mahomes drive down the field.
Well,
maybe they go corn dog.
What was the corn dog again?
Corn dog, a little corn dog motion.
Oh, yeah, they did it twice last time.
Yeah.
Right?
Mecole Hardman?
No, I think it was Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, Kadarius.
And it was, what's his face? Sky Moore. Neither, I believe, will be playing in this one. The interesting one here that I think everyone's going to raise an eyebrow at, Jalen Hurts, 14th.
Oh! Explain
yourself, Pete.
Well, pitchforks are coming to you.
Well, he hasn't been as good this year. I don't think there's any question about that. If it was Jalen Hurts that we saw in that Super Bowl a couple years ago, he'd have been in the top 10.
Okay.
But he hadn't played to that this year. And there were questions about him holding. He holds the ball too long. When they are throwing the ball, he holds it too long. He can turn good plays into bad plays. He can turn bad plays into good plays. That's who he is. So I think 14's about right for him.
He has an opportunity to kind of rewrite the book on himself with a win against Patrick Mahomes.
But if Barkley goes for 170 and 2 touchdowns, and they win, and he throws
Barkley goes for 95. Jalen Hurts has no turnovers and 2 touchdowns.
Then he rewrites the book.
6 or 7 conversions on the tush push.
Yeah,
the tush push is an accident.
That's the one thing that Hurts gets underrated with him. Everyone wants to talk about his passing yards, but O-line's great. Saquon's great. The option run and the tush pushes are a massive part of that offense. I mean, we saw it a couple weeks ago when he went for a long one against, I believe it was the Commanders, right?
Yeah, he pulled it he scored the very first touchdown of the game. I'm giving you that. The tush push, come on, give me a break. It's an accident play.
Somebody who says that the tush push isn't a skillful play has never played football. And what's the guy's name who I'm talking about from the Packers? The president of the Packers?
Mike Murphy.
Mark Murphy.
Mark Murphy. Come on, man.
And he played football.
Come on. You never ran the tush push.
He did play football.
Did he play guard?
No, he played, I think, where he played.
He was a slot
He was
or a
outside.
receiver
He played
or
outside.
a DB
played
or
DB.
a safety, somewhere away from the line of scrimmage.
He's being forced to retire this year because he's too old.
Now, let me ask you this. You think
that
you
pisses me off.
You give him credit? You give him credit for the tush push?
I give the guards, the center, and the quarterback credit to physically, mentally convince yourself and have conviction to go down there and put your face and your neck in it, drive those feet, hit the weight room all off season.
Well, the other part of that question is, should the quarterback be doing it?
It doesn't matter. It's getting done. It's happening.
The quarterback
if you have a problem with it, load your oxen up with weights in the offseason and get ready to stop Jalen Hurts in that offense in the tush push.
I know what I'm doing if I'm on that side and they start doing the tush push to me. I'm starting to take some shots underneath that damn pile.
Some cheap shots?
Yeah, damn right.
What are we hitting? What's our strike zone?
Something I grabbed way back in the day when I was underneath the pile and had a high-pitched voice come up.
This guy, dude. Unbelievable.
The other interesting thing that jumped off the page to me, Quinyon Mitchell, 13. Cooper DeJean, 27. The Eagles' first and second round picks in the secondary. Traditionally a position that it ain't the easiest to transfer to the NFL. A lot of corners come into the league and get burnt toast year one. Those guys aren't only burnt toast, they are legitimate value adds, the cornerstones of that Philadelphia Eagles secondary, both higher than Darius Slay on this rankings, the guy who was, the previous cornerstone for last Super Bowl.
And Slay did not play very well in the beginning of this season. I give him credit because he's come on over the course of the final part of the season on into the postseason. So, but these two guys have been really great at coverage.
Yeah,
both of them.
Slay's a vet, and you're never going to feel 100% as a veteran. But if you're a veteran and you go about your business the right way, you can maintain that level of physicality throughout the season. And I'm sure for these younger guys that are in the building, the edge kind of wore off a little bit on them, and now they're all kind of even, and Slay's able to pick up the pace there on his end. But I think that a big part of that secondary success is a guy like Darius Slay and the leadership he has on those young guys.
It is funny to me as draft analyst. Last 2 drafts, Eagles, you couldn't find a grading of their drafts that wasn't like an A+. And then lo and behold, it turns into Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. 4 guys who are cornerstones to this defense, have completely transformed what they've done since last Super Bowl because there's been so much turnover. And their best defense in the NFL now.
They have one starter on the defensive line who started in that Super Bowl, and it's Sweat, who's also an unrestricted free agent, by the way.
They got guys for days on that defensive line now. All right, that's 11 through 34. We have 35 through 46, the back end of Pete's rankings coming up right after this. Welcome back to Pushing the Pile. We've ranked starters 1 through 34 in the Super Bowl. We're going to get to 35 through 46. As always, you can find it on CBSSports.com. Pete's rankings of every single Super Bowl starter. All right, let's get into it. 35, Cam Jurgens, the center. We're going to talk about that one off the top. 36, Mike Dana. 37, Shamari Connor. 38, Reed Blankenship. 39, Marquise Brown. 40, Juwan Taylor. 41, Mike Pennell. 42, Oren Burks. 43, Brian Cook. 44, Juju Smith-Schuster. 45, Jahan Dotson. 46, Mike Caliendo.
Somebody had to be last, Mike.
Yeah, it's got to be tough to be behind the guys like Oren Burks, who literally were backups until just a few weeks ago. But, hey.
Well, Caliendo was a backup, too.
Yeah, there's some really good players on this list here still. I mean, we're going down this list. I'll start with number 36, Michael Dana, a guy who was a role rusher in Kansas City. He's come up big in some big moments, pressures, hits on the quarterback. I look for that to be a guy who can make some sneaky big plays in this Super Bowl. He's no stranger to big games. He's been a part of these defensive fronts with Chris Jones and all the cast of characters for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a guy to have your eyes on anytime it's third down. And
they brought him back on a 3-year contract this year, in large part because Andy Reid loves the way he works. And he's one of those guys.
He is a great dude.
He's a good guy to have on your team. He's never going to be a star, but he's a good guy to have on your team.
And he's always, you know what, there are players with talent that end up out of their assignment, and I'll put that guy on the bench 100 days in a row just to have a guy out there who I know is going to do their assignment, I know is going to use those techniques. And Brendan Daly, the defensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, he loves a guy like Michael Dana. To your point, he's exemplary. You need those kind of guys in the lineup.
Cam Jurgens at 35, though. I believe he was a Pro Bowler this year at center. One of the keystones, obviously taking over for Jason Kelce.
Don't ever mention Pro Bowler. Fans vote for that. Stop.
But that's why fans may be questioning why he's down at 35 for you. That's what I want to say.
I mean, look, I think he's been okay. He's been good, solid, but nothing special at center. I think it's been an adjustment for him. Next year, I think it'll be much better. It's much like Mailata, Dickerson. They get better, I think, as they get adjusted position. I think this is one for him where Becton, if you graded the offensive lineman on that team this year, he was the worst of the group.
I agree. Yeah, I'm not debating.
So that's why I had him down there.
Well, they also have their center do a number of things externally. He pulls really well. Yes. He gets to the second level. He's incredibly balanced and fluid with his technique. He's consistently getting onto guys at the second level. I think that's a big reason why Jason Kelce, we've all heard he handpicked Cam Jurgens to replace him. And you can see why, because there's a number of things that are in the same motif, same genre as Kelce did. Getting outside in space and getting on guys, getting the play started for Saquon.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player.
And the tush push. Your favorite play in football. It takes a special kind of human to get down there and be the center at the tip of the spear for that tush push. And they got another one.
You got a tough guy.
The other guy I want to hit on, the guy who's dead last on this list, Mike Caliendo. And I floated this to you. Do we think, because of the way the Eagles' best pass rushers, they are both on the interior. It's Milton Williams, it's Jalen Carter. Those guys can get after it.
Yeah, but you're just counting Nolan Smith the way he's been playing.
But I'm saying your best pass rushers. Nolan Smith, I mean, like, they're all.
Let's just call it this. The real threat for the Philadelphia Eagles against the Kansas City Chiefs looms inside on the interior part of the defensive front.
I think you guys are discounting Nolan Smith on the outside.
So what he asked me was,
I know what he asked me because I think people have
back to guard, and I said absolutely not.
But it's. So he'll be going against Sweat, though. So Nolan Smith's going to be against Juwan Taylor. Right? That's where he stays left.
Right.
Sweat's on the right side going up against.
And Sweat led them in sacks this year.
Okay. Well, that's an edge guy's going to lead you in sacks.
But again, you're just discounting the edge guys. Look, I get it. I thought about that for a second. I said, do you put Humphreys in the lineup and put Tooney back at left guard? You know why you don't?
Let's hear it.
You can find guards anywhere. They grow on trees.
But not against no.
Okay, so I hate to bring up tennis on a football show, but people that play with each other in doubles, they get used to spacing. I understand which balls are going to be yours, which ones are mine, where my feet are going to be in comparison to yours. And when I think about double teams and I think about having a guy in your hip pocket, you have to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that his technique is going to match yours. Continuity matters at the offensive line position. And when you're talking about guards and centers, it matters even more there. And for Joe Tooney, I have no problem saying, hey, big guy, you're out there on the island. We got to deal with these dragons on the inside. Do not change anything. Keep it as it has been since they went and played Myles Garrett in Cleveland.
Yeah, because my other part of that is he's going up against Josh Sweat, who's a very long edge rusher. And Tooney, the reason he's in at guard is because he doesn't have long arms. And that is where you worry, is where a guy with 34 plus inch arms.
But he also, when he was against Daniil Hunter, who's got long arms too, he did it okay. He did a solid job against him too. So when he played him in the playoffs. So I think I'd keep him at left tackle. But as far as Caliendo, look, he's a grinder. He's like when Allegretti went in last year and played. He's not as good as Allegretti, but he also has as much experience as Allegretti. I think you let the grinder grind and let Tooney play left tackle.
You keep Tooney at the left tackle position because who has become the most comfortable with Joe Tooney at left tackle? Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And when Patrick Mahomes knows beyond the shadow of a doubt that he can make his drop at 10 yards, step up to 5 yards, deliver a strike, see what's in front of him develop in terms of the protection, that is a huge thing. What I saw early on in the season with Kingsley Suamataia, with Wanye Morris, I saw a short edge on the blind side. And that leads to a guy like Patrick Mahomes, or any quarterback for that matter, having doubts, stepping up too soon, not getting to the top of your drop. Their offense changed drastically with Joe Tooney. It's the best way to go.
Plus, you can find guards anywhere.
Last guy I want to talk about, then we'll get to break. Hollywood Brown, 39th on this list. But to me, I'm not saying he should be higher, but I think he's been a key to the Chiefs' offense because it's like going from a guy who would have been, 46th on this list to a guy who's 39th. Like his emergence at the end of the season after coming back from that shoulder injury, I think it just adds a different dynamic to this offense because you can play soft on Xavier Worthy all you want. But now this gives you two speed guys. It gives you two guys that stretch the field. And I think Kelsey has been the guy who's been like the beneficiary of it because now there's space for him to work over the middle of the football field.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I think when you look at it, the fact that he can run scares people.
Yeah.
The fact that Worthy can run scares people, and you defend it. You defend it differently. I mean, you see, we talk about the Rams all the time. The Rams scare nobody because they don't run. The Chiefs were a lot like that until these guys started going. Who was scaring anybody? Nobody. After Tyreek Hill, who scared anybody down the field? And I think that's the biggest difference for them. You can't defend them like that anymore because they can go.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because at 44, there's Juju Smith-Schuster. Mm-hmm. And that's a guy, when the chips are down in the roster for Kansas City, they can throw him in there and he can run these zone concepts and find a way to get open, find the soft spots in the defense. He's a guy that Patrick Mahomes trusts on third down. I think the more of those guys you can have on the field, the better.
It's funny. They talked about Hopkins, the big acquisition. He doesn't even start, and he didn't even have a catch.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
All right, there's your 46 starters ranked 1 to 46. Go to CBSSports.com. Check out Pete's full list and his explanations for all of them. We're going to have Bryant McFadden join the show after this to break down Super Bowl MVP candidates. We're going to be drafting who we think is most likely to win. There's probably only a few, but we're going to go deep and give some explanations for all of them right after this. Welcome back to Pushing the Pile. A little change of plans here on the desk. We're going to be doing MVP candidates tomorrow. Right now we're doing Super Bowls. Which are the best Super Bowls? I have a limited knowledge span here. I think the first Super Bowl I remember probably Super Bowl 31. No, maybe 30, around there.
Packers
6 or
beating
7.
The Patriots?
Patriots was 31. 30 was it Steelers Cowboys was 30. He knows these. But he's got a bigger memory bank than us.
But it's funny you say the first one you remember, because I remember my first one that I was on. They showed highlights. They were showing recaps of those games the other day, and it was Super Bowl 3. I remember watching it with Joe Namath. I don't remember 1 and 2. I know I saw them. I sat there, but I don't remember them. I remember 3. I was 8. I was 8. Chiefs, Packers, then Raiders, Packers, and then Jets, Colts.
Got it.
So you're going to have a little bit of a deeper knowledge bank to go to. But we're going to be drafting them. We're going to go Kyle, then Pete, then me, and then we're going to snake it back around. So we're each going to draft 3 Super Bowls apiece.
You know how Pete took notes for those Super Bowls? Cave paintings.
You went there. No, I was 8 years old, and I was bitching about bad quarterback play and bad play calling. I'm 8 years old.
Already talking about the running backs not mattering back then. All right, Kyle, kick us off. What you got?
I'm going to go first. I don't know what number this was, but the 85 Bears, okay? This is
the best Super Bowl ever. They won the 55.
It was in New Orleans.
It was a blowout.
It was in New Orleans, and the Bears won.
It was a blowout.
Bears down, Chicago Bears.
That might be one of the worst drafts ever.
Super Bowl 20 in New Orleans.
It's the first. It might be the worst pick of all time in any draft.
I don't know. If the producer will tell me the number, we can say the number, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
Super Bowl 20. Super Bowl 20. There you go.
I'm going to take, for history's sake, the Giants beating the undefeated Patriots and the helmet catch.
There you go.
Fantastic one. 42.
And it wasn't a great game. It was a great defensive game, but it had those moments, and you knocked off undefeated. That to me makes it the best of all.
I'll give you that. That's a good one.
Yeah, that one was, I mean, that's going to live forever. And it has a moment like that's just indelible in the NFL history. So hard to go against that one. I'll give Kyle, I'll say I have Super Bowl 41 on here in my bank of drafts just because it was when the Bears lost. So if he can get when the Bears won as a Packers fan.
That was a Devin Hester return.
That was a Devin Hester return.
In the rain.
Unbelievable.
I will go with, though, in terms of like just best games, Super Bowl 51. Unbelievable. 28-3. It was the 28-3.
That was going to be one of my picks.
You just, hard to go against that one. It's the 8-year anniversary of it today. I just heard producer Stryker saying. That one just from the amount of things that had to happen for the Patriots to win. I mean, I'm not trying to make Falcons fans relive it, but it was truly just an unbelievable series of events. Just everything going.
Take 3 knees, kick a field goal, and you have a ring, Atlanta. That's all you had to do. Arrogance got in the way of being a smart football coach.
So now you go second.
Oh, I snake back. I'm going to pick. Go Homer. I'm going to go Kyle's route. Super Bowl 45. Green Bay Packers, Pittsburgh Steelers. B-Mac was supposed to be on the desk here. Good thing he wasn't. He was a player in that game. He gave up a few yards. Thanks, B-Mac. But that game was Aaron Rodgers at his peak. Packers won.
That's why Ryan Clark hates Aaron Rodgers.
That's why Ryan Clark can't say nice things.
You just rubbed B-Mac's face in it.
Yeah, so he's not up here. I'm glad.
Sorry, B-Mac. He's right down here.
Yeah, he rubbed his face in it.
Okay, so now you're up on Snake.
All right, I'm going to go with the Cardinals-Steelers game.
Okay, that's 43.
Santonio Holmes?
Yes. Oh. And Larry Fitzgerald caught one, put him ahead, went that, split the seam right down the middle, caught the pass, went for a touchdown, then they come right back, Santonio Holmes. But people forget that Fitzgerald had another play after that touchdown where he almost broke it again, and they would have had a chance. So then there's the James Harrison return at the end of the half for the interception.
As universally loved as Larry Fitzgerald was as a player, I still think we forget how damn good he was.
Amazing.
For so long.
Amazing. And Kurt Warner was fantastic, too.
So there was a year where the Raiders won the Super Bowl in Tampa against the Washington team formerly known as the R-Word.
1984, that was.
Yeah, that was my
strike year.
My dad won the Super Bowl, was part of that defense. I remember it was against Washington's Hogs offensive line unit, which was, they were all-stars. They were a physical bunch, and they were pretty much the identity, like how the Eagles are. That's how the Washington football team was operating at that current time. The Raiders beat them. They were heavy underdogs. And, I grew up looking at that Super Bowl ring all the time.
Jack Squirek.
I think it was
had the interception for a
Flores
touchdown.
was the coach. Plunkett was the quarterback.
Jack Squirick, ask your dad. He had
on the pick six?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
He tried to throw a swing pass, and Jack Squirick picked him off and turned it
in the shadow of their own goalpost.
Marcus Allen had the longest run in Super Bowl history before it was broken, but he went right up the middle.
The Raiders.
The Raiders.
Before my time.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. All right, you go again.
Okay, my other one
Super Bowl 18.
My other one's going to be the Philly special.
Oh, Super Bowl 52. Nick Foles going unconscious.
Greatest accident in the history of the NFL.
Okay, so that team, the Philadelphia Eagles team, I got to see it from a distance, but the way that they came together, they had such a cast of misfit characters and toys on that team. The way they rallied together, they were underdogs, the masks, Jason Kelsey's Super Bowl parade speech. So much of that was iconic. I'll never forget that season for the Philadelphia Eagles, and obviously it's been a long time since they won.
I just noticed, though, you went Bears over family.
Yeah. That's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Because you picked the Bears Super Bowl over the family Super Bowl.
And I picked Dad's over Chris's.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Let's start a family fight. The Longs are going to get into it.
Yeah, I'm going to go see Dad at the hotel.
Pete, you're up next.
Okay, I'm going to go.
You want Super Bowl 41 or Super Bowl 44? You've had 42 and 43.
Give me the numbers on those ones. I might pick them.
41 was when the Bears lost.
No, that was awful.
44 was Saints versus
That
Colts.
wasn't a great game either. I'm going to go with
the Saints Super Bowl was magical.
How about last year?
Yeah,
That game goes overtime.
58.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with that one.
That comeback was unbelievable.
It was a great game.
They had no business being in that football game.
No, it was a great
game. It was
game.
almost more impressive to me than 28-3.
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
With the time left on the clock, Patrick and those guys to go down the field
and then win in overtime. So I'm going to go with that one.
All right, my last pick, the last pick. I'm going to go with Super Bowl 34. Greatest show on turf against the Tennessee Titans. Mike Jones tackles him at the 1 yard line. Doesn't quite get there. I just remember as a kid being like, that's it? It's
so
over like
close.
that? He's right there.
It should have been Jacksonville Super Bowl. They were the best team.
Yeah,
they were the best team in the league that year. But you know what they didn't do?
Team, they would have been in it.
They lost to the Titans 3 times that year, including at home in the championship game.
It's really hard to lose 3 times.
The franchise has never been the same since.
Yeah.
Titans felt like Team Destiny, too, because that was the New City Miracle game. That was the
Correct. They
throwback.
wouldn't even played them. They would have gotten to play Peyton.
Oh, incredible. All right. There you have it. I had Super Bowl 51, 45, 34. Pete had 42, 43, and 58.
You guys don't remember, by the way, the old Super Bowls used to be
18,
bad games. Before your time, they were.
Yeah,
that was a knock on the Super Bowl, was they were bad games.
Really?
They weren't great games.
All right. There they are. You see them on the screen. We're going to take a quick break. After that, Deion Dawkins, left tackle for the Buffalo Bills, joins the program. Coming up right after this. Welcome back to Pushing the Pile. Mike Renner, Kyle Long, and Leger Douzable joins the set. Because we're supposed to, hopefully still going to get him. Radio Row gets a little crazy sometime. Deion Dawkins, left tackle for the Buffalo Bills, going to join the show, hopefully. But on an interview a few weeks back, he floated out that because of all the disrespect offensive linemen have to deal with, that they deserve an Offensive Lineman of the Year award at the NFL Awards ceremony that's going to happen, I believe, tomorrow night. Here in New Orleans. And so at CBS, we ran with it, right, Leger?
Yeah, for sure. I think it makes a lot of sense, and Kyle can speak on this. When you talk about offensive linemen, he brought up in that press conference, how come no offensive lineman is talked about in the MVP category? I know people were saying a few years ago with Jason Kelsey that he actually should have been in the running for MVP for what he does for that Eagles offense, not only the offensive line, but the entirety of the offense. A guy like Lane Johnson, who's been a consummate pro, who's been a stalwart at right tackle. Why can't he get some love for MVP? So I love my guy, the snowman, Deion Dawkins, bringing this out, because even as a defensive lineman, we kind of get Defensive Player of the Year awards, but how many times will an offensive lineman get or be in the running for Offensive Player of the Year?
Well, I think it's important to point out that this is kind of the antithesis of what being an O-lineman is all about, because we often don't want the attention. If you call our name, it's holding number 75, 5-yard penalty. loss of down, whatever the hell it is, we are in trouble if you hear our names. We want to be unseen of and unheard of. But a guy like Dion Dawkins and the cast of characters we have playing offensive line in the National Football League now, we can't help but point them out as what? They're stars.
Yep.
And when you talk about value add for an offensive lineman, the way that they get this offense going, it's important. I think Dion Dawkins had a great point. We made a list, me and Pete, and we got to talk about it the other day. Hopefully you guys had an opportunity to see that video and vote on it.
Yeah, at CBS Sports, we are giving out an offensive lineman of the year this year, inspired by Dion Dawkins. And because of that, we wanted to debate who we thought should win it, because we haven't given it out just yet. So who are your favorites? Kyle, who you got this year?
Well, obviously I'm high on the guys in Kansas City, and the things that Joe Thuney has been asked of in Kansas City this year, switching positions from the left guard spot where he was an all-pro to the left tackle spot where he became, in my opinion, a top 5 left tackle in the National Football League. It is without comparison. It's almost like when we had J.J. Watt make a Pro Bowl or All-Pro at two positions defensive tackle and defensive end. Unheard of. Joe Thuney went and did it this year because his team needed him, and I think that's the reason why I like the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and I think Joe Thuney should be in the running for it. But if I'm going to give it to a guy who only plays one position, it's Lane Johnson for the Philadelphia Eagles. Lane Johnson is equally as good and dominant in the run game as he is the pass game. He's a complete mute button on the right side in pass pro, and in the run game, he's been working with a new offensive guard, Mekhi Becton, all season long. Getting him up to speed, watching those two guys work in combination has been fantastic. Saquon Barkley loves his new offensive lineman, and I love Lane Johnson the most out of that group.
So Lane Johnson was a guy that was probably high on my list. I'm going to give you a couple other guys. Tristan Wirfs from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You talked about Joe Thuney making the transition from left guard to left tackle. People forget Tristan Wirfs was a right tackle. They moved him to the left tackle, and it was like he played left tackle his whole life. And for people that don't understand, I'll have you explain how difficult that is when your brain is functioning one way, like your post leg is the opposite leg now. Just explain, once you move from the right side all the way to the left side, how difficult that is.
Well, it's like wiping with the other hand, BJ. Okay, there's some people that are lefties, there's some people that are righties. But I'll tell you what, it can get messy if you try to go the other way. And for a guy like Tristan Wirfs, it just shows his elite athleticism, his mental toughness to be able to switch spots and be able to do that. And to your point, if I'm a right side player, this is my post leg.
Correct.
This is where I'm putting 70% of my weight on that inside leg. When you switch to left tackle, now you have to relearn how to do it. Guys' stances change. Guys' sets change. Guys' techniques change. Some guys, the rare ones, can switch sides and look like a mirror. Tristan Wirfs is one of those guys. It's a rarity to see what he's done.
Yeah, it's not just the mental fortitude, it's the physical fortitude as well.
I've broken my right hand before and had to wipe left-handed. Let me tell you.
You invested in a bidet, didn't you?
I would not have been able to switch sides along the offensive line. I'll just tell you that right now. My vote, if I had to give a vote, it's got to go Lane Johnson for me. Because one, it's almost like when the guy is on that dominant of an offensive line that the Eagles have, you almost have to give it to one of them. It's one of those sort of things. Now, there's been Tristan Wirfs, I think, would be him neck and neck. But Lane Johnson, they put him on an island more than pretty much any other tackle in the NFL.
For sure.
Against elite edge rushers, whoever it is, like a Micah Parsons, like a Rashawn Gary, they're comfortable just saying, you go one-on-one. Not a lot of people are willing to do that with their offensive tackles because they're not as reliable. They can't handle both speed and power the way Lane Johnson does, and because of that, he's going to
have a big matchup against George Karlaftis in the Super Bowl
that would be
as well.
A good one to watch. We have to give some love to Dion Dawkins, though, right?
Oh,
he's the guy that thought about the award.
You already know.
He was the only other Pro Bowler on the Buffalo Bills team, so I think he would have to be in that running, one, because he's played at an elite level as a Pro Bowler, but also because he brought this idea, and we're running with it, right? Offensive Lineman of the Year. Shout out to you, Dion Dawkins.
Love that.
Buffalo Bills O-line, one of the best in the NFL. And Dawkins, one of the coolest things about Dawkins to me is that he's deep in his career at this point and only gotten better, right? Like, it feels like early on in his career, a lot of offensive linemen, I don't say peak, but like year 3, year 4, they become who they are. This guy was not year 3, year 4, the guy he is now.
Well, it's no surprise that a lot of the names on this list, let me just start with saying this, not all O-line coaches are created equally.
No, they're not.
Andy Heck in Kansas City has a couple of the guys on the list. Philadelphia with Stoutland has a couple guys on the list.
Your guy in Buffalo.
Aaron Cromer in Buffalo. There's no surprise here. Let's show some respect to O-line coaches. How about it, guys?
Give them an award. No more All-Pros and Pro Bowls. Give them their own award. That's our show for today. Pushing the Pile. We'll be back 12 p.m. tomorrow, 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next time, Keep pushing.
Peace.